Some of us recently gathered at the CBI cemetery for the unveiling of Marcia Burick's gravestone. May Marcia's memory be a blessing. This was certainly the first unveiling I've attended where the act of unveiling of the stone was met by laughter. The reason we all laughed was because once uncovered, those present read, etched on the stone right beneath Marcia's name, the question, bracketed by quotes, "Do you have 2 minutes?" Now, any of us who've had the blessing of knowing Marcia gets the joke so warmly captured in this epitaph. When you bumped into Marcia, she would ask you if you had 2 minutes. And 2 minutes with Marcia was, of course, never 2 minutes. It was 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or 60 minutes. And you loved every minute of it. Because the magic of being with Marcia was that when you were in her presence, she made you feel as if you were the only person in the world who mattered to her. We had a gathering here at CBI about a year ago to celebrate Marcia's Shloshim, the 30 days, marked 30 days after her passing. And as the mic was passed from person to person whose life she touched, young and old, people from so many different parts of her life, different periods, it became apparent that most of the people present felt as if Marcia was their best friend. I myself feel deeply connected with her despite the relatively short amount of time that we spent together. I attribute this to the experience of being in Marcia's presence, which was to be completely enveloped with her warm and generous attention. In the Talmud, there's a story of Rabbi Perida, who had a certain student who he would have to teach 400 times before the student would learn the material. One day, while Rabbi Perida was teaching the student, some rabbis suddenly came into the room and requested Rabbi Perida's presence for an important matter as soon as the lesson was over. Rabbi Perida continued to teach his disciple 400 times, as usual, but this time the student did not successfully learn the material. Rabbi Perida asked the student, "Ha'idna ma'ishna?" Why is this time different? Why were you unable to grasp the lesson? The student replied, "From the moment that they said to you that there's a mitzvah for which you are needed, my mind has been distracted. For every moment I thought to myself, now my teacher's going to get up. Now my teacher's going to get up and leave." Rabbi Perida said to him, "Pay attention, and I will teach you, and know that I will not leave you until you have fully mastered the lesson." And he taught him again an additional 400 times until he had learned the material. How often do we find ourselves on either side of this relationship? How often do we find ourselves like the student in this story, distracted, uneasy, unsatisfied, because the person in whose company we find ourselves, the person with whom we seek connection, is not fully present? Their physical body is in front of us, but their mind is somewhere else. And how often are we the one who lacks presence, the one responsible for a disappointing encounter because we're checking our phone while we're putting our child to bed, or because we're thinking about where to go out for dinner while talking with a friend? As a parent, I am without question guilty countless times each day of not offering my children my entire presence. I am so often consumed with my own thoughts and preoccupations and anxieties, busy reviewing past events or planning future ones. When my kids were younger, being reminded that I was distracted in their presence was up to me. On many occasions when they were babies or toddlers, I would catch myself having been lost, suddenly again mindful of the precious human I was swinging on a swing or cradling in my arms. Now my kids are old enough that they are partners in the reminding. They, of course, notice when I'm distracted, when I'm not really listening or noticing what they're trying to convey to me. And they'll call me out. Abba, have you been listening to me? Abba, are you paying attention? I didn't ask you to fix the problem. I just want you to know how I'm feeling. And their discernment of my being present in body but absent of attention is always accurate. And as a rabbi, how often am I distracted while talking with someone who walks into the building without an appointment or calls on the phone and wants to talk? Distracted because I'm consumed with the thing that I had previously been planning to do. I forget momentarily what is clearly most important, offering my full presence to the human in front of me. Our previous farm manager, Rose, who many of us know and love, had a wonderful sign above her desk, near he is here, that now lives stationed inside of our farm shed, which reads, "Plants, people, email," in that order. When we look at the long list of confessions in the Al-Chet prayer that we recite again and again over Yom Kippur, I find it interesting to consider how many of the articulated sins can be attributed to the absence of mindfulness, to distraction, to attempting to do two things at once, to our mind being disconnected from our body. Arguably most, if not all of them. Idle chatter, sexual immorality, empty confession, foul speech, foolish talk, denial and deceit, speaking ill of others, selfishness, stubbornness, betraying trust, succumbing to confusion. Did we commit any of these acts while we were fully attentive and tuned in to the person or people in front of us? I know that I am not alone in that the past few years have been tumultuous for me. During this time, I've been very fortunate to be part of an amazing men's group that has served as a source of tremendous support and strength. When I think about this group of men, what they have offered me, what we offer each other, it is above all else generous, attentive presence. When we gather each month and take the opportunity, each of us, to share what we have to share, it is the collective container of steady and kind attention, much more so than any offered wisdom or advice, that feels so supportive and healing. The poet David White writes that the ultimate touchstone of friendship is not improvement, neither of the other nor of the self. The ultimate touchstone is witness, the privilege of having been seen by someone, and the equal privilege of being granted the sight of the essence of another, to have walked with them and to have believed in them, and sometimes just to have accompanied them for however brief a span on a journey impossible to accomplish alone. The intimacy and significance of being witnessed, being seen, is so much what this day is about and stands at the heart of the original Yom Kippur story. The description of Yom Kippur that we just read from the Torah, the account of the high priest performing the ritual of atonement in the Holy of Holies, is not the first Yom Kippur story. According to tradition, the period of the month of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, and concluding with Yom Kippur today represents the 40 days when Moses went back up Mount Sinai after the incident of the golden calf and his smashing of the first tablets. Yom Kippur is marked as the day when God invokes the 13 attributes of divine compassion that we recite again and again on Yom Kippur, and in doing so forgave the people and writes a second set of tablets upon the tablets that Moshe carved. The Torah's poignant description of Moses' encounter with God during the time immediately after the extraordinary sin of the golden calf captures the most intimate moments of their relationship. The greatest rupture has occurred. God is incensed. The people are terrified. Moses is shaken. And from his place of profound fear and doubt, Moses feels utterly desperate for the reassurance of God's presence in his and his people's midst. Moses said to Adonai, "You say to me, 'Lead this people forward,' but you have not made known to me whom you will send with me. Further, you have said, 'I have singled you out by name,' and you have indeed gained my favor. Now, if I've truly gained your favor, please let me know your ways, that I may know you and continue to be in your favor." God said, "I will go in the lead and will lighten your burden." Moses replied, "Unless you go in the lead, do not make us leave this place." And Adonai said to Moses, "I will also do this thing that you have asked, for you have truly gained my favor, and I have singled you out by name." So God agrees at this point, essentially, to lead personally the people for the rest of their journey through the wilderness, but this is still not enough for Moses. He wants more. At this point, Moses exclaims, "Har'eni na ekvodecha," let me behold your presence. Now Moses has finally told God what he really wants. "I want nothing short of bearing witness to all of your unmediated glory." And God concedes to this, but with one caveat, answering, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim before you my most intimate name, Yud He Vav He," what we pronounce as Adonai. "You can have all of me, but here's the caveat. You cannot see my face. For a human may not see my face and live." God then instructs Moses to station himself on a nearby cleft of a rock, where God shields Moses' face with God's own hand until God passes by, and then only then God uncovers Moses' face so that he may perceive God's back. Yom Kippur is our time on that mountain. We too are asking for forgiveness, for renewal, and ultimately for the gift of more life. And the more we manage to get in touch with the rupture, the disconnection, the alienation we experience in our own lives, the more desperate we feel, like Moses, for assurance, for closeness, for true intimacy with the source of our lives. So as the day goes on, we pray harder, we open our hearts a bit wider, and maybe we discover the true question our heart needs to ask. And as it was for Moses, the answer we receive or don't receive from God is likely not entirely satisfying. We may take comfort in being reminded of God's attributes of compassion. We may even feel the presence of God passing by where we're stationed in the cleft of the rock. But while we are alive, we cannot ultimately witness the fullness of God's presence. Moses was in Adonai's presence for 40 days and 40 nights on the mountaintop, during which time he ate no bread and no water. And before writing down the tablets of the covenant, when Moses finally came down from Mount Sinai bearing the 2 tablets, the Torah includes an extraordinary detail. Moses was not aware that the skin of his face was radiant. It was luminous on account of having spoken directly with God, of being immersed in God's presence. Moses was not permitted to see God's face, but now after having dwelled so intimately in God's presence, his own face was radiant. The message is clear. We may not be able to gaze upon God's face, but we can be the face of God for one another. Through our full and generous presence, through our steady, compassionate attention, we have the opportunity and the capacity to help one another feel heard and held and witnessed. and there may be no greater gift that we have to offer. Shana Tova.